This is the 2021 Tesla Model 3 Standard Range Plus that I leased nearly 4 years ago, and that's now in the process of being returned as the lease term is up. And if you didn't know this, Tesla does not allow its customers to buy out any Model 3s or Ys at the end of their lease term. Now, in retrospect, leasing a vehicle was a pretty terrible financial decision, but my logic at the time 4 years ago was that Teslas, although everywhere on the road today, they were super rare back in 2021. Like seriously, you never saw them on the road, at least here in Canada, let alone had the chance to even sit in one or even drive one. So this was really a shot in the dark for me into the EV world. And although financially, leasing has pretty much been like lighting my money on fire, well, I'm not overly mad about it because this particular example has had its fair share of issues, which I think will only get worse over the coming years had I kept this one. Panel gaps, suspension issues, low paint quality, rust, terrible range, these are only some of the issues that have surfaced with this particular Model 3 after only 4 years here in Canada. And I'm convinced that further degradation to everything I just spoke about would only accelerate from here on out, which is why I've purchased a 2024 Model 3 Highland version, as they call it, which has been majorly improved on basically every single level. So this video isn't about that car though. If you're interested in seeing more about that vehicle, subscribe to my channel, but also check out one of my other videos going over that car in detail. Let's now look over how much it cost me to lease the 2021 Model 3 over the past 4 years and what it's costing to now turn it in. So first of all, let's take a look at how much it actually costs to lease this vehicle over the course of a 4-year period. So I got the base rear wheel drive version of the Model 3, which was $54,180 at the time. And the thing about leasing a car is that you essentially pay for the depreciation of that vehicle over the time that you have it, plus the rent charge, which was $6,000 in this case, and they then make an estimate of what the residual value of the car will be after the term comes to an end, in this case after 4 years, and which was in this case $26,548.20, as we can see on my lease agreement, meaning that I have to essentially pay for the difference in depreciation. Now, one thing that's insane though is that I had to pay sales tax on the capital cost reduction, as you can see here, which is totally crazy considering I don't even have the option to buy out the car at the end of the lease. But anyways, this brought down the amount that I put down on the car by roughly $2,000. Like, what a waste of money. But anyways, this essentially means that I paid $24,336 over 4 years for the lease payments, which is in addition to the $10,000 that I basically put down on the car, even though that was money that I did receive from the government rebates at the time. So sure, but even still, looking over this years later, what a terrible deal this was, and I don't know what I was necessarily thinking when I was 23, but hey, we learned from our mistakes, and at least the videos that I made about my Tesla over on my main channel made me a combined roughly $850, which I guess paid for nearly 2 monthly payments. All right, now above the cost associated with the vehicle itself during the term of the lease though, there may also be certain fees associated with turning the vehicle in at the end of the lease term, which in my case, there were a few. And this is mainly determined through what's known as the self-inspection that you do at the end of the lease. So around 3 months out from the end of your lease, you'll get an email and a notification in your Tesla app telling you that, hey, it's time to start your self-inspection, which comes in the form of taking photos in and around the vehicle, at which point they will then get back to you and tell you what's in need of repair and what costs you'd incur if they weren't repaired ahead of time before bringing the car back in. Now, I was actually really nervous about this final inspection as I've read a bunch of horror stories over on Reddit, and of course didn't want that to happen in my case. Many people were claiming that they had thousands and thousands of dollars in excess wear and tear charges, which is kind of ridiculous considering you're giving the car back. In a lot of these cases, it didn't look all too too bad in my opinion. So after submitting photos of the vehicle in the self-inspection though, a rep from Tesla reached back out to me very quickly in less than like 24 hours with the additional charges outlined, which in my case, there was a cost associated with tires, as Tesla forces you to turn in the car with tires that are a certain tread level, plus other fees associated with what they call excessive wear and tear, like curb rash and other issues with the car. And by the way, if you're wondering what all of these actually entail, you can find a list of what Tesla does consider normal versus excessive wear and tear on their website, broken down into different categories. And what I can gather through speaking with various other people who have turned cars in, what you're charged for really depends on the inspector that you fall on, as it kind of is like a Russian roulette here, but try to do as much as you can ahead of time to minimize the risk of incurring any additional charges. Now, in light of these guidelines though, I personally had to change the tires on my car before turning it in, which cost me $590 as I got the cheapest tires I could find within the spec range that Tesla specified and required, but it's still a cost nonetheless that totally sucks, as I essentially gave Tesla a free pair of tires that are totally adequate for 2 or 3 seasons, despite being Mirage Chinese tires. They're still totally fine. And for the record though, I asked Tesla what they charged me for 4 new tires at Lease turn-in had I not done this, and it would have been around $400 per tire, so $1,600 total plus tax, nearly $2,000. So do yourself the favor of changing your tires beforehand. Otherwise, I also have to get some larger scratches and dings dealt with that, mind you, were 100% my fault, but this did cost $1,000 to repair ahead of time from a small body shop in my region, as Tesla would have charged me probably double or even triple for the same work. In fact, I asked Tesla directly how much they'd charge me to repair this bumper, and they would have charged me $1,800 plus tax just for the bumper, and I also had a couple scratches on the rockers that would have definitely incurred additional charges. Another common cost people often run into with leases are extra fees associated with busting the allocated miles included in your contract. Now, in my contract, it would have been an extra 15 cents per kilometer driven, which is equal to about 25 cents per mile. And luckily, I didn't surpass the 64,000 kilometer limit that I was allocated, but that can really add up if you bust through the limit. I mean, just an extra, say, 2,500 kilometers would have cost $375. So make sure to stay on top of your mileage if you do ever lease a Tesla or any other vehicle for that matter. Now, to note here, even though you do a self-inspection yourself, what they tell you is potentially going to differ from when you actually return the vehicle, because of course you could say Photoshop the photos that you included in your self-inspection. So upon returning the vehicle though, that I actually did this morning, I have since received my final invoice from Tesla, and here is what that looks like. Luckily, I didn't incur any other additional charges other than what we've already spoken about, but I do have that $507 extra charge for the final lease payment, which truth be told, I think is really kind of crappy considering I literally bought a brand new vehicle. I asked Tesla 2-3 different reps and none of them were able to waive that last cost. Most other dealerships, if you're turning in a vehicle a month early and you're literally leaving with another vehicle, they'll waive that extra cost. So that's definitely kind of unfortunate. Also, something I've seen a lot of people online talk about is a disposition fee. I, for some reason, did not have to pay that. In fact, I even asked people at the Tesla dealership and they had not even heard of it. So no disposition fee, at least as of October 2024 here in Canada. Okay, so with all that said, above the cost of leasing the vehicle over the 4-year period, which wasn't cheap considering the down payment I made, well, it cost an additional couple $1,000 just to turn the vehicle back into Tesla at the end of my lease, which honestly feels like a financial kick in the nuts, especially considering I purchased a new vehicle directly from them and they weren't even willing to waive that last month's payment, even though I turned it in a month early. But hey, you have to live sometimes with the consequences of your actions, I suppose, and I certainly won't be leasing another vehicle ever again. That said though, silver lining, there was practically zero maintenance over the 4-year period, and whatever did have to get done, like suspension work on basically every wheel, was covered under warranty. So at least there's that, and I did save quite a bit of money on gas as I charged the vehicle at home at around $30 per month is what it costs me, which was during a time in 2020, 2021 when gas prices had hit $2 a liter. So at least that was nice as well. The bottom line though is that if you lease a Tesla or any other vehicle for that matter, just realize that it isn't your car and you're effectively renting a car for 3 or 4 years, where a lot can go wrong, which will all be at your expense at the end of the day. Make sure to subscribe to my channel for more Tesla related content. And if you're interested in buying a Tesla yourself, or even leasing, if this video hasn't deterred you, then make sure to use my link down below in this video's description, and you'll get $1,000 US or 1,300 Canadian dollars off of the purchase of any Tesla vehicle. So definitely take advantage of that if you can. Thanks a lot for watching. Check out one of these 2 videos to learn more about Teslas, and I'll see you in the next one.